Taoiseach, can I too extend my condolences to the families and friends of Aidan Moffat and Michael Snee, and to recognise Anthony Burke, whose brave testimony was pivotal, and also to thank the Gardaí for their untiring work in bringing the perpetrator to justice. But Taoiseach, the issue I want to raise with you again today is the issue of non-delivery of balanced regional development, particularly in the context of this year's budget. And I also want to raise the submission made by the Northern and Western Regional Assembly, where they drafted a submission asking for three things. First of all, a stimulus package for the region to the amount of €570 million between now and 2027. Secondly, a policy of positive discrimination for the region. And thirdly, autonomy, more regional autonomy. Now, the document itself sets out very clearly the reasons for these three asks. First of all, regional inequalities are rising in Ireland. Back in 2010, the gap in disposable income between the Northern and Western region and the Eastern and Midland region was 10 percentage points. By 2021, that gap had grown to an astonishing 25 percentage points. Secondly, Census 2022 data illustrates that population growth continues to be unsustainably uneven. Thirdly, Taoiseach, while employment levels across all regions are high, the Northern and Western region has a below-average concentration of jobs involved in the knowledge and technology economy, the jobs of the future. And fourthly, according to the European Commission, the region has been downgraded to lagging, with the border region being described as in a development trap. And the Northern and Western region, GDP per capita, is now 17% below the EU average, despite the fact that back in 2006, our GDP per capita was 5% above the EU average. Now, Taoiseach, that's a pretty grim picture, and one sector not dealt with by this report, but of crucial importance in the region, is that of tourism. And we see that the counties with the highest proportion of their tourism accommodation being used to accommodate refugees are all along the Atlantic coastline, with a report last March showing that 82% of Fáilte Ireland registered tourist beds in Donegal were to accommodate refugees, 50% in Sligo, 42%, 50 in Leitrim, 42 in Sligo. The downstream impact is huge, yet the budget was silent and disappointing on the asks from the Regional Assembly. Taoiseach, what will you do to improve the ranking of this region vis-à-vis other regions on the European Competitiveness Index?
Thanks very much, Deputy. And I neglected to recall Anthony Burke's name earlier, and I just want to particularly pay tribute to him and the fact that he went to the Gardaí and gave them crucial information, really the crucial information, which enabled the Gardaí to apprehend the man who carried out those terrible murders in Sligo of Aidan Moffat and Michael Snee, and really want to pay tribute to him again, and also to recognise the Gardaí and their work. Deputy, what we're doing and what we'll continue to do is to actually make balanced regional development happen in Ireland, and that is something we're doing under this government and under predecessor governments. In the last census, for the first time in quite some time, the population in every county increased. We haven't seen that for quite some time, and that is of real significance. We have the Rural and Community Department under Minister Humphreys with a fund of €1 billion to invest in rural areas in particular, and I think everyone who travels the country can see the impact of that on the ground now in our towns and villages all over Ireland. We've seen employment rise in every county, again, something of importance and real significance. Not just the employment rate going down, but the number of actual jobs in each county has gone up. We've seen the development of the technological universities, which I think make a huge difference, and you'll be familiar with the Atlantic TU, which is a campus in Sligo. Through the IDA property programme, all over the country, building advanced factories, so that if we take a potential investor to a regional town they can see a business park or a building ready for them to get into. And we see how that's worked in Castlebar, how it's worked in Kilkenny and other places. The National Broadband Plan, connecting every home, farm and business to fibre, something virtually no other country is doing. And that will really make a difference in terms of running a business in rural Ireland, running a farm, being able to access online healthcare and education, and of course the infrastructure budget. And you'll know the biggest single investment we signed off this year for any part of the country is the upgrade of the N5, the Tulse to Scramogue Road, a €500 million investment, improving access to the West. Those are the kind of things we are doing, and of course we need to do a lot more. It's a challenge for any country to spread development away from the capital, away from the big cities. Almost all countries struggle with it. Look at Copenhagen in Denmark, look at Vienna in Austria, but we're actually getting some good results here.
Thank you. You gave a few stats there, but Taoiseach, you've been in power since 2011. And the figures that I quoted for you earlier, they're not my figures, they come from the Regional Assembly, from their report. And you can see that the economic gap is increasing. You mightn't like it, I don't like it. But that has to tell you something, Taoiseach. It has to tell you that the actions that you and your government are taking are not working. You tell us the population has increased in every county. Yes, it has, but proportionately, it's the increase in the counties I'm speaking of is much lower. It is still unsustainably uneven. You talk about increase in employment. You're absolutely right. But the jobs of the future, the high-value jobs, those jobs, our level of employment in those jobs is well below the national average. You tell us the TUs are very valuable, and indeed they are. They're right across the country, and we're getting our fair share, I'm glad to say. But you mentioned the IDA property programme. Will you ring-fence some of that for the region? Will you ring-fence our fair share, or will you look at a bit of positive discrimination? Because that's what's needed to try to ensure that we get some sort of rebalancing of the imbalance that's already there.
Thanks, Deputy. There are many ways to measure things. Your focus has been mainly on GDP and relativities. That's a fair argument. I would say that when it comes to judging economic success and economic progress, I've never used GDP as the most important measure. The most important measure is jobs, employment, incomes, businesses, investment. And when it comes to IDA, which the Deputy specifically mentioned, of the 139 new investments made last year, over half were outside of Dublin. And I think that was very significant. When it comes to Enterprise Ireland, which is Irish-owned exporting companies, over 2/3 of the new jobs created by Enterprise Ireland companies are outside of Dublin. But Deputy, our job as government is to listen to everyone's case and everyone's argument. You make a very strong case for the North West, as you should do. You're a TD from Sligo. I could hear TDs from the South East, and I see their heads nodding, who could equally make a very strong case for positive discrimination for the South East. And I will equally hear people from the Dublin City region who will say what's lost to Dublin is very often lost to Ireland, because only Dublin can compete with Singapore and San Francisco for certain investments and certain jobs. And it's our job as a government just to balance that and to try to get it right.